Welcome back to school, semester 2. We are starting 2021, and I hope you had a lovely New Year's break and Christmas break. Uh, would anyone like to share any, like, how was your break?
I think that is too short.
But longer than other years. We had like a whole over a month. It was good.
Yeah.
Because usually we like in previous years there was sports week that started just after the semester started, so we would usually start like before January 10, like January 5 or something, and then go on a 2-week break immediately after that. But this year they didn't do that, so we got a extra late start. But yeah, it still seems too short, doesn't it? Anyone else enjoyed your break? Anything interesting did you do?
I gained a lot of weight.
I heard the statistic that Americans, at least, over the holidays gained something like 15 pounds or 7 kilos, 7 or 8 kilos.
Whoa.
It's ridiculous. I know. Don't worry. It all kind of like it. We build up around the end of the year, and then we kind of like shrink down over the course of the year. Um, anyone else have any news or interesting things to share? I have one interesting thing to share personally. I I moved out of Bangkok, and right now you're seeing a lovely background of my new residence in Koh Phangan, Got Phangan. So I moved to kind of get away from COVID uh, and the city.
Oh,
So
so is it permanent?
yeah, for for at least one semester.
Oh.
Yeah,
How's the weather there?
it's really nice. It's like 27 degrees, breezy, sunny. How about in Bangkok? What's it like now?
It's a bit
Oh,
cold.
Ooh,
oh,
cooler weather.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Some chats. Okay. So first thing, I'd like to draw our attention to the syllabus. So I'm going to share screen. All right. So welcome to Intro to Research Methods in Psychology. Semester 2. We have the same teaching assistant as last semester.
Will this be posted on Blackboard?
Yes. And I'll post it on Blackboard as soon as Blackboard is set up. But I think it may take 2 or 3 weeks to get everything organized with Blackboard. All right. Then here's our Zoom link. And if we go down here to 17.2, we've got learning contents. And I'm going to update these assigned pages of reading throughout the semester. So some of these numbers will change, maybe not. But for example, I shortened today's reading a bit from what I used to assign last year. But it's you're probably one of your longer research, assigned readings is this week, Some weeks are heavy, longer readings, some weeks shorter. We have a midterm in the middle of the semester, final exam at the end, research paper due at the end, normal grade cutoffs. Here's the assessment percentages. Quizzes 15%, midterm 25, final 25, research paper 25, and research presentation 10%. Here's our, okay, so here's our research text. Can you hear me with the wind in the background? Is it windy on your side?
Yeah, we can hear you well.
Okay.
Not really. We didn't hear any. We can still hear you. Just doesn't sound much wind.
Okay, I'll try to speak close to the computer. So our research methods text is right here. It's an electronic text. It's free source. Anyone can access it for free. You don't have to buy it. Exams will be multiple choice and short answer, maybe more emphasis on the multiple choice because it's easier for me to grade. Research paper, it's described. Quizzes, there will be pop quizzes. Each quiz is like short, three questions or longer. And I offer 1% extra credit if you participate in a research study, or do a book review as an alternative. All right, so you can read the syllabus in more detail later on if you like. Now, let's start with lecture. Okay, so today's topic is the, oops, sorry, one moment. Today's topic is the science of psychology. We can talk about ways of knowing things, which is a bit kind of abstract and philosophical, but it's a good place to start. So here are 4 basic ways of knowing things: intuition, authority, rationalism, and empiricism. So intuition is just knowing without knowing how you know. It's just a gut feeling or sense. We could group into this category of intuition feelings of, if you think it's true based on your own experience, but you haven't conducted any data analysis or sampling, it's just based on your own experience, maybe we could fit that into intuition as well. Authority is when you know something to be true because a reliable and trustworthy source said it. Rationalism is when you use good reasoning and logic. And empiricism is following the scientific method. It's basically, empiricism means based on observable data. So data that you can look at or anyone can look at. Measurable. All right, any questions here? So what is science? It's a general approach for understanding the natural world. Here are some features of science. It's built on systematic empiricism, in other words, observation. So science is based on observation. When the data disagree with popular consensus, scientists put greater faith in the data. So they don't trust popular consensus, tradition, long-held beliefs. As a good scientist, you have to lay aside all of those and put a bit more trust or faith in the data, your data, or other people's data. The second feature is that it's driven by empirical questions, testable questions. So here's some examples. So if I ask you, is it a beautiful day over there? That's certainly not an empirical question unless I ask it in a different way. Is it a beautiful day to people in Bangkok? On a scale of 1 to 10, something like that. Now it's empirical because it's measurable. It's a testable question if I phrase it in terms of a question like, do Bangkokians think it's a beautiful day today? So a testable question or a testable hypothesis is one that can be measured. And a third feature of science is that it creates public knowledge. The sharing of findings is essential. New knowledge is collaborative. It's not all based on one scientist and one set of data. It's based on everything that supported that scientist and supported the research questions and supported the theories. So science is very collaborative. It's built on others' work and it's shared with others. So it's always a collaborative like thing, shared knowledge and knowledge supported by others. And publication enables other people to identify errors in analyses, in logic, sound reasoning, assumptions, and so forth. All right, I sent you a worksheet by email. So let's turn our attention now to the empirical questions worksheet. If you can grab that. And your assignment here is to identify questions by.
When did you send this?
Yeah,
When did you send this?
yeah, I sent it by email. Did I?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, it was in a second email following the first one because I forgot to send it. So here are 16 questions and I want you to try on your own to identify the empirical questions. So at the bottom of the page, you can type in or write somewhere which ones are the empirical ones. So how do you know whether it's an empirical question or not? The empirical ones are the ones that can be answered with observation, with measurement. So I'll give you a few minutes.
John, Jason, can you send it to my email again? I didn't get this one.
Oh, okay. Well, what's your name?
Earl Josh Mathan Valoria. Email Mathan.
Okay.
Maybe you just send the link in the chat in our Zoom.
Oh, good idea. Thank you. All right, I shared it. We'll see how many you get right.
Excuse me,
Yes.
Mr. Jason. So
Yes.
there's one of my friend, and he cannot get in like this Zoom. He said that this Zoom needs a password to get in.
Hmm. Um, okay. Do you have any suggestion? Idea? How do we get your friend to?
Did you try using the link?
Yeah, I I sent him the link, and he needs a password. So I'm not sure why.
That's weird. Is he in the class? Is he in?
He's not in the class yet. Like he's using his iPad to get in, and he needs a password. So I'm not sure if it's like his iPad or like this Zoom class.
Hmm. I don't know.
Someone just sent the password.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Thanks.
yeah. Thank you. Thank you, bro.
Thank you.
Good. Appreciate that, bro. All right. So maybe raise your hand if you have finished the worksheet. I'm trying to figure out how to see everyone. Okay, you can continue working. I'm going to go through these one by one. So the first one, would you say that is empirical question or not?
No.
Yes, I agree with you. It's not empirical. Why do you say no?
Because the answer that you get would probably be more of like a yes no, but not to do with numbers.
Well, you could use tests that can be measured with numbers. I consider this not empirical because we have not defined too closely. Like, what does that mean, too closely? Does extrasensory perception disappear when it is observed too closely? If you can't define, or you have not defined what too closely means, then it's hard to answer the question because we have not operationalized the question parts. So each part of the question has to be defined in a way that can be measured. So number 1 is no. Number 2, does God exist? Was that empirical or no?
No, because you can't really define it.
Right. And no one's come up with a satisfactory way of measuring and determining one way or the other about it. So that's not an empirical question. Number 3, how does
Yes.
working? Yeah, that's very empirical because it's all defined right there. Working during college, we can define it however we like. And we know what GPA means. We know what during means. We know what college means. So we know what all of these things mean. So we can measure. The question is framed in a way that lends itself to being measured, more or less. Number 4, are gun control laws strict enough?
No, because we can't define the word enough.
Exactly. We have not defined enough. Number 5. Would you?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. I would say yes. So number 5 is the first. No, number 3 and number 5 so far are yeses. Number 6.
No.
No.
That's right. Because
What they mean by successful. Money.
exactly. Great. Number 7.
Yes.
Yes. Number 8.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Number 9.
Yes.
Yes. We can ask the question and then we can answer it through scientific research. So we can answer. Yes.
What's the answer for 8 again?
Number 8, we would say yes, I think. Yes. Because we can measure fatalities before the law went into effect and after the law went into effect. Or we can compare regions where the law is in effect with regions where the law is not in effect. And then we can compare proportions, percentages, and stuff. Next one is number 10.
No.
No, number 9.
Oh no, we are in number 10, but I think she meant like
Gotcha.
it would be no.
The answer is no. Government assist in weight loss program. You're right. The answer is no. Why?
Because the answer might be more subjective.
Yes. It's a subjective question. When we say should, that's always subjective. That's, yeah, should according to whom, right? Number 11, what is the relationship between income and obesity? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Number 12,
Yes.
yes. Number 13,
Yes.
yes. Number 14,
No.
That's right. We cannot measure the future. Hard to do that. Number 15.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Number 16.
No.
That's a tough one. That's kind of ambiguous because you could say yes or no. You could say yes because you can measure your own data. You can collect data from yourself and then make a conclusion about it. Or we could say no, it's not empirical because no matter how many other people we test, we don't know how that answers the question of for you personally. So I would accept a yes or no answer for number 16. All right, so that's the answers. Oops. So here's a summary of the answers. You can include number 16 if you like. All right, moving on. Pseudoscience. A study that looks at that looks scientific, but is lacking in one or more of the following criteria. If the study lacks observations, in other words, it's all speculative, theoretical, and it makes conclusions as if they're facts based on no data, but only based on theory, we might call that pseudoscience. Or if a paper makes a conclusion that cannot be falsified, or the hypothesis or the conclusion is not falsifiable, then it's not scientific. And when there's a lack of publication or lack of public knowledge, then we also would not call that scientific. It's only scientific if it's in the public realm, accessible to the public, we could say, or is published in a scientific journal. So it's got to have these things: observations, falsifiability, and out there in the public domain. And that doesn't mean to lay people necessarily. It could be just to scientific professionals. That's still in the realm of the public knowledge,
You
accessible
mean like
to some public.
it's like it's confirmed by like scientific authorities, you mean?
Yeah,
To be in
basically, it's like,
not like someone saying the moon is made of cheese, then sending a link to a bunch of their friends, right?
right. And if a claim like the moon is made out of cheese somehow gets published in a scientific journal, then we would say that that is scientific. That it's science, it's not pseudoscience now. But that's a weird example because we know it's not made out of cheese. Yeah. So as long as it's out there, and not just out there, but out there in a way that is recognized by leading authorities, scientific authorities, or yeah. All right. The scientific zeitgeist. Previously and moving forward, distinguishing science from pseudoscience and the claims is important to maintain quality in our scientific knowledge database. We don't want to confuse our knowledge of what is established and certain with things that we're only 75% sure of or 50% sure of, because when we work with our sort of base of knowledge, we want to have a pretty good idea of what's true and what we know to be true. So we try to keep our knowledge database more or less pure, not diluted with too much pseudoscience or pop science or yeah. So we need to be able to distinguish between claims that we know have scientific support and claims that are yet to be supported scientifically. However, if we're trying to keep our knowledge base very pure, like only believing 100%, only believing what is accepted by 100% of the scientific community, then we're not going to have a whole lot of beliefs to work with. Because what constitutes absolute certainty? It's kind of, there's gradations of certainty about various things that scientists are willing to accept as true or questionable. So a disadvantage of limiting your beliefs to only the most scientifically supported is that you work with fewer assumptions, fewer known things, and that could slow the growth of knowledge. So we want to always be considering and testing and questioning uncertain beliefs as well as certain ones. So you base your research on certain beliefs and a little bit of uncertainty as well to be able to test things. So remember from GenSci that the career person of the future is agile, creative, and courageous, quick to develop and invest in bold new directions. So this is my argument here, that there's advantages in knowing what other people do not know and in not knowing what other people do know in order to operate from a slightly different set of assumptions from other people, other scientists. Because this, like, asynchronous or unique set of assumptions held by you would lend you a different perspective because of your differing set of assumptions. So that could help you, lead you to discoveries that most people wouldn't have thought of because they never even entertained some assumption that you did, or some pseudoscientific claim that you were willing to entertain more than other hardcore scientists. So don't be afraid of entertaining unusual ideas. Just keep your knowledge base somewhat sifted to get more hard, clear, concrete knowns, things that we're nearly 100% certain of as part of your knowledge base, and then introduce some stranger ideas into your thinking or your logic in small measures to sort of hold on to your readership who clings to hardcore science, and yet expand on that a little bit in a as much as you can get away with. Pseudoscientific beliefs, whether to bother with them. In the spirit of science, let's advocate curiosity and questioning even the most pseudo-scientific claims. How much consideration should you give a pseudo-scientific claim or hypothesis? So in deciding whether you should entertain crazy hypotheses or not, or hypotheses that seem crazy but might be true, might not be, is to consider the potential value for science or for humanity if it were true, and then to consider the likelihood of it being true. So if it's very valuable to humanity, but only 1% likely to be true, maybe it's not worth your time to invest in that direction. But if it helps humanity in some small way, but it's very likely to be true, then you might consider, give it more consideration. How much time or belief would you invest in these pseudoscientific areas and why? First one, cryptozoology. Feel free to answer out loud.
It sounds interesting, and although I don't really believe in Bigfoot and Loch Ness monsters, I mean, there might be a creature out there that hasn't been discovered yet and might be similar to them. I mean, don't they say that humans have only discovered like 10% of the ocean? So who knows?
Exactly.
I mean, if you boil cryptozoology down, it's kind of just like how people would rearrange bones and see what type of creature it is. But most people put cryptozoology about like cryptids. That's where they get the crypto part. It's about
Crypto
these famous
is
monsters.
hidden or secret.
They call these creatures cryptids. You know, like as I said, like Bigfoot, Loch Ness monster. They're focusing on the famous monsters that are hidden.
Ah,
A
I
little less,
see.
a little less like. So
Cryptons. I
if
didn't know
if they
that word.
focus on like new creatures, then I would understand. But it's more about the cryptids, the famous monsters that they focus on.
Uh-huh. The cryptids. Next one, pseudoscientific psychotherapies such as past life regression and rebirthing therapies. Would you pay attention to these? Would you invest time in doing research about this?
Not really.
Personally, I would. I think it's therapy. Even if it doesn't have any scientific basis, but if it's therapeutic, it seems worth considering, or worth testing at least, you know. Test a pseudoscientific psychotherapy against a well-controlled placebo, and that might be interesting. Next one, homeopathy. Would you invest time and interest in this?
Sounds interesting.
I mean, of all the things we've seen here, this one sounds the most scientific. It's like
Right.
just testing natural substances and how it affects our bodies.
It seems very empirical.
If it
Or
seems like just that, like testing how these natural substances react to our bodies in a healthy way, then yes, most likely people would do that. Unless it's like the whole gems and you just feel them, then
Yeah.
it's like it has potential to be empirical.
Mm-hmm.
Potential to be like a proper point of science. It's just a lot
That's
of
right.
people do it in different ways that make it not.
It has potential to become scientific. I would say maybe it's called pseudoscience to some people or many people because it hasn't yet. A lot of homeopathies have not become accepted by mainstream medicine. So it's almost like the lack of acceptance in mainstream makes it pseudoscientific. But really, if it's been tested scientifically, it doesn't matter if the field of homeopathy is considered by some to be some pseudoscience. If it's been tested, the data's there, it's been published, it's moved into the realm of science. So homeopathy is actually becoming more science than pseudoscience. Next one is pyramidology. How much emphasis would you give that, or interest, or time?
No, not really. Let's focus on the pyramids and about like other ways it was made. And if you take it
There's
from
no right or wrong answer. Some of these things will appeal more to some people and less to some people.
could just if you're an architect, you could see like who or why it was made that way. Please guessed, but like the way it's framed here, odd theories about um extraterrestrials, healing, special powers. It seems like of all of these ones, this one seems the least like scientific because cryptozoology can be turned into like empirical science.
Right.
Scientific psychotherapies, it's still therapy. It may not be like scientific in a sense, but if it helps certain people, then technically it works. It's kind of
Right.
like hypnotizing yourself to be a chicken for a couple days so you can feel better about something. You know, it's a strange way of doing it, but it'd still be a therapy. Homeopathy is just how nature still affects us, but pyramidology doesn't seem like it's just it's just theories about the pyramids, and
Yeah. Yeah, I think pyramidology, of all of these, pyramidology and maybe cryptozoology are based they're based on less mainstream theories. Yeah. All right, let me go on. Okay, slight change of topic. This is a simple model of psychological research. So you start with a research question. And where did you get the research question? You might have got it from reading research literature, or you might have got the research question simply from it just occurred to you like randomly, or you're just very curious about this. So you get your research question, then you do empirical study, then do some data analysis, make some conclusions, and from your conclusions, you compare them to the research literature. So then it could start again. Two basic categories of research. There's basic and applied. Basic is to satisfy pure intellectual curiosity. There doesn't have to be any applications of the conclusion. So, for example, does caffeine raise intelligence? Well, actually, there's utility in that. So let me come up with another example. Which neurotransmitter systems are most activated by caffeine? Doesn't matter what they are, there's no utility in it, but that answer might be useful for some other scientific question, or it's relevant to science in abstract or in general. So that's basic research. And then there's applied, which is where your research relates directly to practical concerns. That one, for example, does caffeine boost test performance or increase or decrease test anxiety? These have practical concerns, and the conclusion can be applied readily. Both types of research are important. Can you tell them apart? Which of the following questions is basic, which is applied? So answer that question first to yourself. All right, so is number one a basic or applied research topic?
Why?
Absolutely applied, yes. And number two?
Would be basic, I guess.
Yes, because risk assessment is such a broad category. So if you find that risk assessment is affected, then you can apply that in many more specific realms of daily life. But in its current, the way that this number two is phrased, it's so abstract that we would call it basic research. Cognitive research is usually basic. I'm a cognitive psychology specialist. That was my specialty in graduate school. So different fields, some areas of psychology are more applied and some are more basic. Now it just started raining here, so I'm gonna go inside so that you're not distracted by the sound. Can you hear the rain?
Just a bit.
A little. I can hear it. It's kind of disrupting me, so I'm gonna go inside.
I can hear the bird very well.
Sorry, what did you say?
The bird, I can hear the bird very loudly in the background.
All right. So why do people conduct scientific research? Usually it's for intrinsic or extrinsic reasons. Sorry, we can say always. So intrinsic factors are interest, curiosity, and satisfaction with knowing new things and adding to human knowledge. Extrinsic factors are things like reputation, security, salary, higher ability, things that address your needs at more security levels. One moment. One moment. Sorry. Right. This slide is to point us to a problem, a real critical problem in psychology. It's a problem with our field. The field of psychology is hampered by lack of replication. Some publications cannot be replicated. So it's confusing to scientists and researchers because they want to cite research, they want to trust in research, and some of it has been replicated and is replicable, and some isn't. And how do we know what's what? So it's a real critical. We need to overcome it. So what can we do about that? We need to stay skeptical. We need to remain skeptical when we read findings in psychological science articles, even though the scientific methods were followed and to high standards of quality, we still need replications. And we need to stay skeptical until things are really replicated enough times to be sure, certain of it. So skepticism is important in science, especially in psychological science. Skepticism dates back to the philosophical tradition. The original skeptics were so skeptical they doubted whether it was even possible to know anything at all. Descartes overturned this when he said, "I think, therefore I am." So we know at least that. So that was our sort of, so historically in the skeptical philosophical tradition, we started by saying we can know nothing, and then we've grown or we've extended what we can know gradually, bit by bit. Skepticism is important to distinguish between what's known as true and what seems true. Which of the following two claims would you accept? Would you accept number one, scientific admissions and crimes increase during full moons? Well, whether you think it seems true or not, okay, so actually this has been tested, and the answer is no, crimes do not increase during full moons. Did you think that they did? Did you have some gut sense about yes or no?
Just thought no.
You thought no. You were right. Number two, adult children of alcoholics have a distinct personality profile, including low self-esteem, feelings of powerlessness, and difficulties with intimacy. Would you say that that is, do you have a sense of that being true?
I kind of feel like it's true for some reason.
Right. So that's
Plausible.
Yeah, it's possible. So we could call that, we could say, well, according to my common sense, I think it's true. Or according to my intuition or my personal experience, in my experience, it's true. These are our gut senses. We need to distinguish between what we know to be true and what we think might be true. So number two has been shown to be probably false, at least by the research so far. So both of these claims appear to be false based on the data that's been collected to try to answer these questions. And the lesson is just to be skeptical with claims until we know about whether they've been tested and how many times they've been replicated. So we just have to remain skeptical until we know better. I think it's a good practice to be skeptical until you're sure. Because that mindset or mentality keeps you, it keeps you thinking about how can you be sure, how can you prove it. So it gets you thinking like a scientist. Scientists are generally skeptics. Now, discuss this in pairs. How might this be true and untrue? So for each of these, one, and talk about how it could be true and false, both. To do that, I'm going to divide you into pairs. for a couple of minutes. Okay, so go to your room and discuss this question with whoever you're randomly linked up with. Okay, I'm gonna bring you back into the class. Okay, welcome back to the classroom. So let's talk about A first. You cannot truly love another person unless you love yourself. Why might that be true or might not be true?
I think true, because if you don't love yourself, then maybe your relationship with the other person might go under strain because of it. And then for untrue, maybe you can't love yourself because of personal reasons, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't truly love someone else.
Good answer. So you can see how it could be true or untrue, or both. You know, both can be correct, like fair descriptions. All right, letter B. People who receive crisis counseling immediately after experiencing a traumatic event are better able to cope with that trauma in the long term. Would you say that that's true or no? Crisis counseling.
I mean, going by common sense, I feel like that would probably be true because they know how to, like, they're taught how to deal with it, as opposed to like people who just, I don't know, learn how to deal with it themselves. Maybe like their methods might not be as effective, like long
Right.
term.
Right, yeah. It seems plausible. Seems like, why else would we have something called crisis counseling? It probably helps. Why might it be false?
I
Because
think that it might be false because one crisis and another might not have the same ways to deal with it. So, and some people cannot, maybe they cannot adapt the technique to deal with another crisis.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. One person's crisis not only might the crisis be different than the next person, but the way to overcome the crisis could be different than the next person. You know, like how did you deal with your teenage years if they were traumatic for you, and how can you like overcome trauma? Different people benefit from different ways, and there's no, it could be said there's no one size fits all approach, or we haven't found it yet. So crisis counseling may match really well for one person, and the same method might not work for the next. Studying is the most effective when it is always done in the same location. What do you think? True? False?
Might be false because
It
like
depends.
yeah, it depends on the person. Like maybe some of the person might feel comfortable study at the same location all the time, but some might feel like it's better to change the place that they study.
Yes. Individual differences. So, for this one, I can speak a little bit about what I know. I know that there are people who are sufficiently aroused, cognitively aroused. Another word is alert, much or most of the time. And some people tend to be a little bit under alert, a little bit under aroused, some or most of the time. So for your baseline, wherever you happen to be, and there's different individual differences about the individual baseline level of arousal or alertness. So studying in the same location probably works pretty well for someone who's always aroused or sufficiently aroused, but maybe changing the location could be useful for someone who needs more stimulation from the environment. So we can see how it could be true and could be not true, or both. Anyway, that little exercise is just to get you entertaining hypotheses and ideas, and recognizing that something could be true and false, and why. All right. Now, another point for discussion. Some clinicians argue that what they do is an art based on intuition, personal experience, and therefore cannot be evaluated scientifically. Are you satisfied with that answer? Should you be? Would you be satisfied as a potential client or insurance representative? So I want to, again, break you up into groups and let you discuss this with each other, and then I'll ask you as a class. So I'm gonna put you in your groups now. Welcome back. All right, so let me ask the class now, what would you be satisfied with letter A as a potential client of the clinician?
Of course not.
Of course not.
I mean, I love art. I love art, but no, I wouldn't want like something that depends on my life to be an art of someone. So I want something that I'm sure it's gonna work for me when I go to see a doctor, right? So no.
All right, anyone else?
Yeah, like when you say that something is an art form, you would say something that is like creative, like a dance or something. But it's not something you would say for of this kind of field.
I don't know.
If I
Yeah.
were the doctor, I would be satisfied. Though. I could just tell my patients that dying is the part of like the art experience coming here to this clinic.
So you want something more evidence-based. Anyone else?
I think it also depends on the severity of what I'm bringing to the clinicians. If it's something that needs a bit more help, like it's kind of serious, then if someone tells me, oh, it's an art form, it's gonna work, I would be a bit skeptic. But if it's something more like I'm trying to increase my creativity or I might feel a bit like under the weather, then in that case, I wouldn't mind.
But what if you're a plastic surgeon? Then I mean, the art part would be important.
Yeah, I was thinking more
Wouldn't it?
towards like therapist.
Right. Okay. So okay, so let's limit it to therapy. Would anyone be satisfied to see a clinician for psychotherapy, and the clinician said, yeah, I do everything based on intuition and it's an art?
Well, I mean, if he's good, maybe.
Exactly.
Because if like I'm like the customer and I'm satisfied with what he's doing, I'm not gonna complain about it. It doesn't need to be all like evidence based to be effective, I don't think.
Aha, good argument. All right, thank you for raising that counter argument. Because no answer is right or wrong. It's just there's two sides. This is a debatable thing, whether you would be satisfied or not. Letter B, as an insurance company representative who must judge the efficacy of the psychotherapy, would you be satisfied to accept psychotherapy service insurance claims from therapists who are I don't know how to say, like art therapists, maybe not gone through the mainstream certification protocols?
So illegal?
Yeah, illegal, I guess you could say. Or
As an insurance company, you would take a legal client.
You're right. When I make it all official, when I'm talking about insurance companies, then we get into legality very quickly. So you're right. That's a good point. If we're dealing in legal business, then everything has to be right and proper. But basically what I was trying to get at is you should be unsatisfied. Well, that's what I was thinking as an insurance representative. Well, I was trying to draw like a dichotomy between evidence-based therapy and non-evidence-based therapy. So we generally, and it's becoming more and more popular to go with evidence-based therapy. It's becoming the go-to, the standard. Especially because insurance companies don't want to provide, they don't want to reimburse their clients for things that have no documentation of adequacy. There has to be some kind of a paper trail or scientific support before insurance companies would approve of. Yeah, so usually evidence-based is going into vogue now. All right, it's a bit short lecture today. So I'll end class early. Oh, this is a mistake. See you in 2 weeks. No, it's gonna be see you next week. I think that I must have had a week off last year. So yes, see you next week. Here's your reading assignment. And you should expect a pop quiz next week. In general, I won't tell you when you're gonna have a pop quiz, but I'm giving you a big hint. There's gonna be a pop quiz next week. So I shortened the reading assignment a bit from last year, but it's still a significant assignment. So, all right, that's the end of lecture. Do you have any thoughts or comments or questions about the course?
For this one day assigned reading, what book? What textbook?
Syllabus. On the syllabus, Professor Jason linked it, and it's a free for all kind of thing.
Okay.
An open source textbook. The link is provided in the syllabus, and I emailed the syllabus to you. All right, so
So the
any
test
other
and everything will
questions?
be online, right?
Yeah, everything's online this semester entirely. Blackboard's not set up yet, but that'll come. Next week, I'll give you a little heads up. Next week, I'm going to divide you into 12 groups. So you will be in a group of 5 people, maybe 6 for the semester. And that's to do your own research project. So you're doing a group research project. You're gonna collect data from your classmates online this semester and do some analysis and write up a paper. You're gonna get the whole practice of writing up the whole, start to finish. This is your first full research paper.
Will we be choosing our group members?
No. Well, yeah, out of fairness, you're not going to choose them. I will choose them. So I'll randomize it. Yeah. 12 groups. So any other questions or comments? All right. So thanks for showing up today. We had a good turnout. Looked like everyone stopped in for a moment, at least 64 at the end. Great. All right, so welcome to semester 2, and nice to hear from you guys a bit. Good luck with your other classes. Also, take care of your health this semester. Very important to take care of your health, because with all online, people are going to get less exercise than usual, less sunshine, and that can compromise your immune system. So maybe take some vitamin D supplement make an effort to get out and do a little exercise. And all right, well, stay healthy, stay well, and see you guys next week.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See you next week. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you.